Good evening and welcome to the Stockbridge Selectboard meeting for September 14th, 2023. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First, take action on a one-day alcohol license application for Birch Botanical Garden on September 22nd from 3 to 11 p.m., on September 29th from 6 to 11 p.m., and December 8th from 5 to 8 p.m. Do I have a second?
Make a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Municipal electric aggregation plan review and approve for submittal to the Department of Public Utilities. Mike?
So we have Colonial Power here who's going to walk us through. We have our plan that's been posted for the last 30 days. The last part here is the Board of Selectmen to approve moving on to the Department of Public Utilities. And I'll turn it over to Mark, Denise, and John, right? Joe, sorry. First time meeting.
Mark Capitolo, 5 Mount Royal Ave, Marlborough, Mass. So we're here before you tonight. So you've actually completed the local process other than this board approving the plan as hung. After that, once that's done, we just need the minutes from this meeting, true test minutes, and then Denise will create a filing that will go on to the DOER, that's the Department of Energy Resources. And there'll be a quick 15-minute consultation, Mike and ourselves will be on the call. Real simple, they just make sure that our plan that's been approved some 80 odd times meets all the statutory requirements. Once that's completed, we'll move on to the Department of Public Utilities. That's even a larger body of a filing. It's probably 200 pages long. We'll file that with the Department of Public Utilities. And here's the bad news. That could be a long waiting period. Right now, plans are taking somewhere between 24 and 48 months, depending on what's going on. I will tell you that there's a new administration and some guidelines have just been issued by the Department of Public Utilities to speed this process up. But what I don't know is what happens in the interim. So right now, there's a deadline for October 6th for comments on those guidelines, as well as rebuttal comments, if you will, on November 6th. But how long it takes to actually, will they rule on plans in the interim? Will they not? The department's unclear on any of that, but all I want to do is warn you, it could be a long wait, but lately it has been a very long wait. Yes.
Can you just confirm, sorry, is that,
Yeah.
can you just confirm to me, you just said that you filed the same plan 80 times
Yes.
and it takes the state 2 to 4 years to approve a plan they've approved 79 times before?
That they used to approve in 4 to 6 months.
We're going to talk to the rural, yeah, okay.
Oh, she's actually already aware of it.
Yeah, I know. You know what, I think she hear it 100 times more.
Yep.
This is saving like, yeah, this is like a big deal.
And so these guidelines that they put out are to speed up that process. Now, again, I don't know how long this process of the guidelines is going to take. By the
24 to 48 months.
Well, it could take 12 or 14 or 20 months. I don't have any idea. All of that being said, what's going to happen in the interim? Does it just continue to back things up, or are they going to, issue orders in the interim here? That I'm unsure of.
Yeah.
The bad news about the guidelines is they're doing exactly, if you want to have an expedited review, which can happen in 120 days, you have to give up some of your rights. So, meaning, you got to use their plan. You have to have a launch window. You have to have only 2 products and things like that. So what they're doing is they know they want to have these orders out quickly, but a carrot and stick, we want you to do these things here. So we're not really in favor of the guidelines the way they're written today. All we need them to do is stay out of your way so you can run your plan the way you want to and go back and approve these things. Just to hit on your point, when Denise files this plan, when she files your plan, inside there is a black line between the last approved plan and your plan. So they know exactly what the changes are in the plan to what they last approved. it's a little disingenuous what they're asking.
Yeah.
Today's step is simply approve the plan as hung, and then we're gonna march forward. We're gonna march forward with Mike on those guidelines and things, is to see if you want to participate or not participate. There's also, let's just say they force these guidelines on us. There's also a bill that's out there that hopefully will, so they're playing in the gray area of the law right now. It doesn't specifically say what they can rule on and not. There's a bill that's been filed that will actually take away all of the gray area. There'll be no ambiguity there. You can rule on X and Y, and the towns get to do X and Y.
Which is what they used to do when the initial Berkshire aggregation started back when North Adams and all the other communities launched. They were only ruling on the elements of the statute that there were requirements on, and where the statute was silent, they were allowing each individual town to operate in that area that wasn't stated. Now what they've been doing gradually over the past 6 years is they've been replacing their guidance for what the town should be deciding on, when to go out to bid, how many products to offer, how you have to communicate with your residents about your rates. And they're eroding local decision-making and reducing flexibility.
If they don't have statutory authority to do that, is there a court case that anyone's brought to challenge that? And why not?
Patrick, nobody challenges the department.
Why?
Because
It's a serious question.
no, it's a serious answer, because they're judge, jury, and executioner. Everyone that's in front of them, they rule. I'm going to give.
No, but you can't take them to regular court and say.
You could, but I believe there would be a backlash.
Really?
If we filed it, our business would be dead.
Okay, seriously.
I mean, I'm going to tell you that, don't think anyone's picking on Stockbridge.
No, I understand.
The House Speaker, he lives in Quincy. Last winter, they have a plan in there waiting. He filed, literally within the docket, he said, please give us an expedited review, given the city's makeup, we need to have this. Nothing. Crickets out of the department. They move nowhere. So I don't want anyone to think that you're being singled out. Currently the department is broken. The only thing I'll tell you is there's a new administration, there's a brand new boss, just got sat, maybe at the beginning of June. So he's figuring things out. There's a new Secretary of Energy as well. So I do think moving forward, we're gonna get some movement. We just have to continue to fight the good fight.
Right. Full disclosure, these Zoom meetings are visible after the fact, just so you know.
Well, it is what it is.
All right, good.
And once we're in the plan, my recommendation will be is that we try to line ourselves up depending on when the Berkshire County goes out. And so that our first time we'll end up going out on our own. It'll have to be a little period there and then line ourselves up with the rest of the county. Because especially with North Adams, Pittsfield, Dalton, some of the bigger players, they get a much larger aggregate load, which allows you to get a better deal to provide that price stability. So I've worked with Colonial for many, many years, and they're great at this job. They make it very easy to onboard people and everything else. So, I recommend.
Okay, so what do they need from us?
You need a motion to approve the plan, and then a motion, if it's all right with you, it can either be one of you guys or you can authorize me to sign the paperwork necessary going forward.
I move we
Make a motion that we accept the plan and that we assign you to sign the paperwork.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And you already been done.
Thank you very much.
Be in touch tomorrow.
For the same reason. Leslie has some questions.
Okay, appointments to the cemetery commission. Now that we have a new bylaw.
Yep, a 5-member board. We took basically the employees are off of it, and now it's the board that'll set the policy. Employees, but I'll make it when I can. I know Hugh makes it when he can, and other members, and we'll make sure to carry out the work that the commission has us doing. So.
Okay, so we have Karen Marshall for a 3-year term.
Hi, Karen. I'm not Zoom.
Karen, you on Zoom? Hi. Candace Curry for a 3-year term. Peter Williams for a 2-year term. Patrick White, a selectman representative for a 1-year term. And Pat Flynn's been nominated by Lower Hill Association for a 2-year term.
Can I, just to comment,
attend all the meetings anyway. And so if there's anybody out there who would like, the select board can have one of its own as a representative or can designate someone. So I'm happy to entertain if somebody else wants to serve on the commission, simply showing up as a non-voting member. And so while I'm suggesting we, appoint the slate today, just so there's a quorum issues and all the rest of it, I easily can, change my position if anybody else out in the public wants to be on it. So that'll make a motion to accept the slate.
Can you have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for doing that.
Okay.
Announce open seat on the COA board and CEO director position.
Just announcing the openings.
So
Yep.
we need-
So we need one member for the COA board. Then we'll
Council
have
on
a full
Aging.
board. And that's, okay, for those that don't know, that's the Council on Aging. And we also have a Council on Aging director position right now. I'm working with Chris McCarthy and we'll have further information.
Okay, anybody interested, just get a hold of Mike. And hopefully get those filled. Intermunicipal agreement for shared inspectional and zoning enforcement service among the towns of Great Barrington, Lee, Lennox, and Stockbridge.
Yeah, so been working with the town administrators and managers of the other towns. Basically, we end up in the same thing where we're all competing for the same people and the staff. So then we looked at it and said, why aren't we working together? And let's put together something that would allow us to have coverage in all three towns, would allow us to have redundancy. And so we put together an intermunicipal agreement to present to the towns. And let me just, I didn't log into Zoom yet. Let me log into Zoom.
Oh,
What's that? Oh, sorry.
should have got that electricity plant up before so we could see Clarence.
I was just gonna throw up an outline of the plan, but
Michael, would you name the towns again?
it's Lee, Lennox, Great Barrington, and Stockbridge.
Okay, just want to say that that's what I thought, that you said it was 3 towns.
Oh, sorry, 4 towns.
Okay, I got it now.
All right, so. So what we have is our building department will be made up of the 4 towns. What we see is the setup will be 1 building commissioner, 3 building inspectors. These will be employees of the town of Great Barrington, which they will act as fiduciary organization. We will contribute to that based on a percentage that'll cover all the costs associated with these individuals. Then there'll be 2.5% full-time equivalent office staff. Now, these will be employed by the individual towns. So that'll be the support staff that's within it. The building commissioner's primary focus will be to oversee all the inspectors and the support staff. And they'll also focus on the larger and specialized projects. That gives us 1 individual focused on that. The building inspectors, there'll be 3 of them. 1 will be assigned to Great Barrington. 1 will be assigned to Lee and Lennox. 1 will be assigned to Stockbridge, but we'll split their time 50-50 between Stockbridge and as a floater. So that's what will happen when we get the entire up to speed. I did note here that based on that layout, the cost would be about $375,000. Our share would be 18%, which is $67,500. We currently have budgeted $63,000, so that leaves a shortfall in this year about $3,850. That'll be made up because right now we don't have a commissioner and 3 inspectors. It's going to take us a little while. So we will have enough to cover this year in our original
And
budget.
does the support staff include current staff?
Yes, there's no change of current staff. So, yeah, Jennifer would stay our office person paid by the town, but we would have, once we're up to that full complement of inspectors, we would have an inspector here for 20 hours a week.
Great.
So it's a good setup. This allows the inspectors to have coverage and flexibility It allows, like I said, the building commissioner to focus on those larger specialized projects. And because we use the same software between all the communities for building departments, it's very easy and be accessible by all of them. We think overall this is a good plan and gets us out from competing for each other for the same resources. And it'll bring stability to that department.
No pun
I think
intended.
it's excellent. It's a great move forward. We can see that, this kind of filters into other departments. Like I said, we're all competing against the same personnel, but it's very short. Building inspectors are hard to come by. So I think this is an excellent way to go.
Completely agree.
So I make a motion, we move forward with this.
I want to see if there's
Any questions or comments from the public? Comments from the
Good.
board?
I'm good.
Got a second?
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, that's excellent. I'm really happy with this. Discussing the real estate transfer fee, special legislation with Lee Davis of Great Barrington.
He hasn't arrived yet because I told her around 7, so maybe we could move to Michael's if you don't mind, Chair.
Yeah, went to Michael's.
Yeah, no, just-
So
yeah, yeah.
go have a drink, but.
Right. Oh, no, not that Michael's.
Project update. Okay, Mike.
Yeah, so a bunch of projects are, just wanted to continue to update the board. So I mentioned a couple times, so everybody's aware, they will see the work happening on the Chime Tower. It's going to start on September 26th, run until about October 6th. They're taking the bells out, they're replacing the racking system, and all the elements that deal with playing of the tower as an instrument. That's the point we're at right now. The bells will be coming out, they're going down to the highway department, they'll be stored there until they're brought back and then assembled. It'll all happen within that timeframe between September 26th and October 6th. And after that, the bells will be fully realigned, the new racking system, playing instrument, and the rest will be in. We're working with EDM on finalizing going out to bids for next spring to then repair the cupola above the racking system, which is in need of repairs, and money was already appropriated for that. We have awarded the bid for paving and crosswalks to Palmer Paving. Right now, we're just waiting on a schedule.
Can we go back to the Chime for a second?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I just, while we're still on it. I think it might be interesting. How many notes are on this thing? I don't play music, but I understand there's fewer notes than a regular full suite of notes. It's like, it's like
It's like 11 notes that originally had 6, and then they added the A bell.
It's still less than like doe deer, female deer, or whatever.
Between the historical and the others involved, the decision was made not to.
That's not my question. My question is just, it's a atypical instrument to play because it has fewer notes than normal. And I think as we roll this out again, we should think about some kind of plan to train folks to play this thing, because we only have a handful of people in town, one of whom is a wonderful woman named Claire Williams, who's in her 90s, who know how to play this. And I think it would be great if the youths out there, as the guy said on that movie, knew how to play it, so that we don't just have a thing that we spend all this money to fix that nobody knows how to play. So I just suggest that maybe we think a little about, a training plan or some kind of plan to
Yeah, we'll have to think about that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's something that's been thought about. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, it's going to be installed in 2 weeks, so,
Right.
yeah. All right.
Jackie,
Yes.
hi. Claire Williams stored all of the instructions and the diagrams for how to play Amazing Grace and the 12 or 14 other songs she played in the historic room at the Stockbridge Library with Josh.
Oh,
So that's there, and Claire, although she's 94, would be happy to teach anybody to the extent of what she remembers.
that's great.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Yep. Paving crosswalks, I think I stated, Palmer Paving's been awarded the bid, contracts have been signed, agreements are. We will get out to residents through Code Red information about the timing of the paving. once we get the timing down. So right now, we're working on finalizing a couple things that need to be done, and then we'll have a paving schedule and the rest. And
Just to clarify, the issue we had last week had nothing to do with this. That was a Muse issue, right?
yeah, that was something else. So, yeah, in this case, we will be letting people know there's a number of streets that are happening, and we will be putting out a bulletins saying which streets and approximate times. These are outdoor projects and they'll be weather dependent, but we will have a rough timeline of when things will be happening. Ice Glen, another one, the bid's out, bid's back, it's been awarded. And we will be working on the next round of treatments, working with Ken.
And they have the fast uptake.
Yeah, yeah. And we've bid out both the injection and the basil bark spray. So we'll be doing both, and that'll be done under the federal grant that we received for treatment. So
We have any reports on this is working, not working?
I'll ask Ken to come in and give out, I know I've spoken to Ken, but without getting in, I'll see if Ken's available for the next meeting to come in and give an update on the condition of the Glen and the trees.
Last time I spoke to him, he said we hadn't lost a single of the ancient ashes other than 2 came down in a storm. These are the 400-year-old ashes. So that part, that aspect of the spraying worked very well. I think time will tell. We had a wet summer, which is good for those trees. So hopefully we don't lose too many more of those. Yeah, the hemlocks.
Yep. And the last thing that we've been working on the salt shed design. So this, when we redid the garage down at the DPW, the other thing was the salt shed. We did work with our previous building inspector, and it was determined that building needed to be replaced. So as you remember, a couple of years ago, we did borrow some money to address all these problems. So we have been working on the design. What was the last week, Hugh, that we had? Not last, the week, last Friday, that we met with EDM and Foresight and went over the conceptual plans that they had at that point. We'll be meeting with them again within the next week or two, and either the last meeting of September or the first meeting of October. I'll be coming forward with a rough cost estimate on it. Originally, we had set aside $500,000 in that borrowing to do the salt shed. Whether or not that, with everything that's changed, that was, a year and a half ago, not last meeting, the meeting before town meeting. We all know that prices have escalated, so we'll have to look at and see where we are as far as
Salt or the shed?
the salt shed.
And the salt.
Both. Salt is up and the shed is up. So nothing is getting cheaper as far as that. So those are the most recent projects that I have updates on.
Anything with the cat and dog fountain? We were waiting on that.
So the cat and dog fountain is completely done, ready to go, except for the
Cat and dog.
the top part, the historic part. So we did, the guts of it.
Can we just install the dog? I don't care about the cat.
I will give compliments to the highway department, Hugh Page,
great
who is
job,
here. They did a great job of getting the basin ready and the pedestal, everything. Water and sewer assisted with getting the water reset up. Everything is there. We are waiting on the final 2 pieces, and we did have to order some additional cement. The moldings are happening, and hopefully they'll be done shortly. So I don't know if we'll have them up for this fall, but they're more than likely we're probably going to just end up covering it. But
I would wait.
we should have it
by
done
now
for the
spring.
Yeah, and have some
Something
type of,
safe
maybe some
storage.
type of grand reopening or something else. So if there are any more delays, I will let the board know. But right now, we are on the final piece. We have been waiting patiently, and I know the person doing it is working hard to try to.
As I buy it, look at it and say,
One more. How do we get to the end piece in that?
And thanks to Bob and Kate, and who else is on the farm committee?
Oh, you would have to ask me that. Bob and Kate and
Who's the third person?
Carl.
Buck or Carl?
Carl.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks to all of them. Do we have a plan for the landscaping down there yet?
So we don't have a specific plan yet, but we will, and we did have a donation of money that was given to do landscaping and stuff around it.
Yeah.
So the plan is to really dress up that area for next spring.
But what's the plan to design how we're going to dress it up?
I don't have one yet.
All right.
We'll be coming up with that
We
over.
want, I would rather,
Just to mention, Parks and Recs is working with the high school and doing some plannings and in the green areas, maybe bring some of them ideas and put a fountain in the center.
yeah, I just feel like it's, the actual implementation of the landscaping is great, but I do think that it's the most important visual park in the center of town, and making sure that, I mean, we've got people like, there's many talented landscapers in this town, including people like, Tom, Farley, and many others who have offered to help. And I think that we might want to solicit input from folks on what some ideas are before we start doing the actual plantings. And the other question I would have on that is, did we come up with a plan for the tree? What?
Actually, Farley did stop by and put some fertilizer around it, because I, had some concerns that we exposed some roots and stuff, so he actually just come.
Well, there was some discussion of taking it out or leaving it in, is what I'm
I
asking.
don't know, I just, whatever the committee.
That's really up to the select board, or
Yeah,
if you guys want to.
something we got to seriously
As an
look at,
option.
if it's worth taking out and planting something smaller.
Well, to my point, I think what we want is not having Mead make this decision. I guarantee you that's a bad idea. So what I would love is to have people, and it could be anybody on this, anybody, I just want to have professionals kind of weigh in on the entire park as a park, not willy-nilly kind of take the tree out or add some bushes there,
But also, just to mention, the power, the electric is restored, there's no
Yeah.
meter socket, so this year
Yeah.
Christmas lighting should go up.
Right. So you're thinking an artificial tree?
No.
Well, if the board wants, we could have, go down and have somebody like Tom Farley do an evaluation of the tree and what pruning needs to be done or what.
All the trees,
Or just,
see
just,
what's worth keeping, what should go.
but ask the townsfolk's opinion, there's no shortage of ideas, maybe a few of them might be good, and, and I think we just reach out and let's start a conversation around what we do next. That's my suggestion, but, or not, but either way, just
One thing, we did award also the new fencing for the Pine Street tennis courts. So once the new fencing is done there, we will then proceed on to having the court resurfaced. So Pine Street will be, by the spring, be fully repaired as far as the playing surface and all new fencing around it. So,
Great.
Yep. And that's the end of my report.
Impeccable timing, Lee Davis. You want to come up and?
Oh, did you?
Just come up, have a seat.
Just one more thing to mention is the four lights on, down by Park Street that are on the bridge, Southern Bridge, one of them's gone. We do have it, it's in our possession, we're working with Kamali to rebuild them, so they'll be straight and secure.
Isn't that state?
No, we own the lights.
So the interesting part, yes,
Bridge, we own the lights.
yeah, that's
We
actually,
own the lights.
that's actually not uncommon. So it's actually, I'm familiar with this, and both the other communities I worked in had the same scenario. So when they replaced the bridge, they put a standard light pole on all their bridges. So if you want the specialized bridge pole, which we wanted the original lights there, in order to keep them, you have to agree that you're the one that's going to maintain, repair, and be responsible.
And fish out of the river, it turns out.
And fish them out of the
No
river.
water rescue.
Yep.
Okay, good evening.
Hi, nice, thank you for having me. I just ran from a Community Preservation Committee meeting, so.
Nice.
So I guess I'm going to be speaking a little bit about the real estate transfer fee and give you a sense of where we are in Great Barrington. I am the vice chair of the Select Board in Great Barrington, and I'm also the chair of the Housing Subcommittee. So it's a joint committee with the Planning Board and the Select Board. So I am in my second year in terms of chairing that committee. And the real estate transfer fee came out of the Housing Subcommittee. So it's been an 8-month process. We started with a housing initiatives worksheet, and basically we did a brain dump of all the different initiatives going around. And I had kind of zeroed in on the real estate transfer fee as one opportunity to provide revenue to fund affordable and workforce housing. So this was on a long list of initiatives. And through discussion with the housing subcommittee, kind of rose to the top. And so we went into discussions and we decided to bring it to the select board as a recommendation. So at that time, we brought 2 recommendations to the select board as a housing subcommittee, that and a tax exemption for landlords that provide affordable housing. So we brought 2 of them. I believe that was in August. And so, in February, actually. And after that presentation, they recommended to bring forward for further discussion. So it's been an 8-month process. And so we, on August 29th, we opened up public comment, and we had, residents come in and give feedback in terms of the proposal that was on the table, which I'll go into in depth. And now on Monday, the select board will be determining whether we're going to go with the proposal on the table, number 1, and number 2, whether it will be on the special town meeting warrant, which right now is set for October 23rd. So it has been an 8-month process, and I don't need to say to anyone that there is a housing crisis on the board. And it's not just a Great Barrington issue. It's not just a Stockbridge issue. It's a regional issue. It's a national issue. And we're all trying to do our best. So we dove into the short-term rental bylaw a couple of years ago, as you might have heard, and now we're trying to think of ways to generate revenue. And because housing costs money, I mean, really at the end of the day. So if you want to have programs, you want to, build housing, it comes down to generating some revenue. So what we have done and what the proposal is on the table at the moment is I'll give a little highlights. And what's important to know is that this proposal is just a foot in the door. Okay, there's nothing locked in stone. So basically what we need to do is we need to give residents something to vote on so that could go onto the warrant. But because state law necessitates us going to the state legislature to enable us to pass a real estate transfer fee, a home rule petition, there's a series of steps. So it's not just the select board determining this goes on the warrant and then it's passed. We actually need to go to the legislature. So for this reason, it has a multi-step process. So we bring it to the select board makes a determination of putting it on the warrant. If it is approved by a majority, then it goes to the legislature. There are several towns, many municipalities and cities that have done this. I believe there's 18 municipalities that have home rule petitions that are pending, from Nantucket to Somerville to Provincetown to Boston. So there's a whole logjam of other municipalities, struggling with affordable housing and workforce housing issues and just looking for some semblance of, we need some help. So we're one of many. What's important about this proposal, and when I say this proposal, just enabling us to make a determination down the line, is that there isn't a Western Massachusetts voice. Right now, I think Amherst is the closest city or town that is closest to us. And what's happening with the other home rule petitions that are there, they're looking at big cities. So Boston, I think, has a threshold of $2 million. And so, something has to be over $2 million for any kind of transfer fee to come into effect. That might not be the right size, might fit for a smaller town, such as ours, such as, rural Massachusetts. So what the movement is to get more voices into the conversation. So what I with the help of the subcommittee, we've had discussions and we landed on a proposal, and it's basically just to start the discussion. So where we are right now is any property, including commercial, residential, industrial, that is sold over $1 million would have a 1% fee imposed on it. And that would be split between the buyer and the seller. So what that looks like is, if the sales price is, a dollar over $1 million, there would be a transfer fee. And what we did in terms of looking at that, I know the Berkshire Eagle talked about a progressive structure, and there's other ways to do it. Some towns have looked at area median income. So Amherst, for example, they said 200% over area median income would be the threshold. So if, let's say, the area median income was $500,000, 200% over that, then that's when the transfer fee kicks in. So there's many ways to slice and dice it. So for example, with us, the 1% fee would kick in after $1 million, and that would go first. So we did an analysis of what that would look like. So in fiscal year 2022, and I worked with the town assessor to make sure that numbers were right, but obviously there's room to finalize that. But we came into, I believe 14 properties were sold for over $1 million. And looking at that would have brought around $20 million total in terms of properties sold for over $1 million. There are 14 that fall in that category if the transfer fee was in place. So that would have brought, sorry, I have to just check this. That would have brought, $200,000, a little bit over $200,000 to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Now, what's important about this initiative is that any revenue that is earned from this transfer fee is deposited to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So you have an Affordable Housing Trust Fund set up, so that would be generated to that. What's happening on a state level is that there is legislation that is would enable, smaller municipalities to do this without having to go to the legislature. So there's like two tracks right now. There's a lot of municipalities, saying that we need to do something, and there's a log jam. So at the same time that we're doing this, there's two legislators that have put forth bills that if they pass, then if you pass it at your town meeting, you would just have to go ahead. You wouldn't have to go back to the state house and wait for them to, go through the revenue committee and so forth. But what's important to know is that it provides a revenue stream, a reliable revenue stream to your Affordable Housing Trust Fund for them to start planning strategically, and for them to have something that replenishes each year. So what's happening right now is that our Affordable Housing Trust Fund is very reliant on the CPC, which I sit on. And that's very, very project-based. That's project-based. That's very forward-thinking, that you have to come to the CPC with a project. You have to, have plan for it. You have to have all your ducks in a row. And it's something that happens once a year. With the transfer fee is that once a year, the money would go into it. So it would gather, it would, start adding up. And what's important to know about this is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund can act very, very quickly. They can be nimble. And if a property comes up, let's say for sale, like a multifamily, or they want to go in with a nonprofit and provide, part of the capital stack, this nonprofit needs this much to close this, they could jump on the opportunity. And what's happening right now is there's a lot of properties that we're losing in Great Barrington because we just don't have the money. So I also am the community engagement director of Construct. And so I'm kind of hearing it from all angles. I'm hearing it from a select board point of view. I'm hearing it from, a nonprofit housing advocate. So what I'm finding is I'm getting calls nearly once a week saying there's a property up for sale. And in this one particular case, the owner wanted to keep it affordable. He had 6 tenants that were living affordably. He was a local that had been here all his life. He really wanted to give back to the community. He said, if you can meet this price, I will give it to you. And he said, but I'm going to put this up, for sale on this date. So it was a very, very short amount of time. And through my contacts with, the town and nonprofits and different developers, I tried to pull together some money. And we were really, really trying to pull this together. Unfortunately, the money wasn't there. And it went for sale on the open market. And so what's happening right now when we're talking about the open market, We have people coming in because it's a wonderful place to live, and they are bidding properties higher and higher and higher. So what's happening is the sales price are skyrocketing. And the people that are living here full time and making the area median income, which I believe for a household of four, it's like $101,000 and some change. And for, one person, obviously smaller. But the people that are working here, to afford a two-bedroom apartment, you need to make $28 an hour, right? So the typical service wage is probably closer to $19 an hour. So what's happening is that there's bidding wars going on, and a lot of the people that have lived here all their lives are being pushed out. And so we're getting calls either from residents or from landlords saying, I'm selling, I'd like to keep this affordable, but I need this amount, or a renter saying, I'm about to be evicted, what can you do? So there's a pressure building. And if the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, if they were able to have some money at hand, they would be nimble and they could enter into these competitive bidding processes and hopefully save renters. The other thing that they could do is they could come up with programs. So because they know there's going to be a certain amount coming in every year, they could have a aging in place program, for instance. They could say, okay, well, we're going to set up this program and, we're going to have an application. And if there's seniors aging in place and they need a grant or funding to make their property accessible so that they can continue to live there, we will continue, we will grant these applications. So they could be very, very creative with this money. Also, what's so important to know is that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund can go to a higher area median income than the CPC. So right now, the CPC is limited to 100% AMI. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is more flexible. I believe they can at least go up to 110 AMI. So you have that kind of differentiate between affordable housing with capital A, going up to 100% AMI. It's really 80%. So between 30% and 80% would be, affordable housing capital A, or workforce housing, which is generally now it's going up to 200% AMI because the prices have gone so crazy. So you have this missing middle. You have these people that are working hard every day, two jobs, they can't afford the $28 an hour it takes just to get a bedroom apartment. So what we're doing as a town and what this proposal is trying to do is give it a revenue stream. Now, what I have to say is obviously it's up to the select board to make this decision. It's not my decision. The housing subcommittee brought it forward, and a vote will be taken on Monday. And we don't, obviously I don't know what's going to happen. If it goes forward, then the decision is, when is it going to be heard by, will it be at a special town meeting or an annual town meeting? So that's still up in the air. But what I will say, there's an urgency to this. And the big urgency is that we had the co-chair of the housing committee from the State House, Senator Lydia Edwards, come to Great Barrington just last week. And she's doing a listening tour. And obviously, Governor Healy is very, very, very passionate about, addressing the housing crisis. So when Senator Edwards came and she had a very, very roundtable, Patrick was part of the discussion, she stressed the urgency of really addressing this crisis. And she did mention that there is a housing omnibus bill that's coming forward possibly in the fall. And what's key about this is that with the advocacy that's going around the real estate transfer fee, there is anticipation that this will be wrapped up in part as part of this omnibus bill. And what's key about is that Senator Edwards is the co-chair of the housing committee. She has been a big proponent of the real estate transfer fee. She was a city councilor and she put forward, she worked with Mayor Wu. And so there's a lot of movement and momentum building. Governor Healy has expressed, support in general in letting municipalities make their own decisions. So there's movement and there's urgency in it. And because I believe there's 18 other municipalities lined up with their own home rule petitions, there's this urgency that if it goes through, if this omnibus bill goes through, then whatever municipalities are queued up in terms of having passed their home rule petition, they will be the first out of the gate. they will be able to be at the table when this omnibus bill is decided. So what's really, really important, I feel, is that for Western Massachusetts, for our region to be sitting at the table with Boston, with Cape Cod, with Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and when they're talking about the higher thresholds of $2 million and, whatever percent, we can say, hey, we need to right size this for rural Massachusetts, for Western Massachusetts. So my urgency and my pitch to my board was, this is not only a housing crisis, but this is an urgent crisis that we need to try to make sure we are on this train to let municipalities make that decision. So what's important to know is that any vote that goes in front of your town, you're not going to be locked in. So again, this proposal that we have forward, the 1% fee over any property sold over $1 million, this will go, this is part of a proposed bylaw, but the actual special act that will be voted on at the special town meeting or the annual town meeting, if it goes forward, it'll be very, very general. It'll most likely say a fee up to 2% on certain real estate transactions. And the reason that we do this is that we don't get locked into the state making that determination. We want it to be within what's going on in the state house in terms of, we want the ability to have a transfer fee on certain real estate transactions. We want the ability to have it go into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, but we want to make the determination of what the threshold is, what the exemptions are. So it's very, very important that we make the actual special act broad enough that we control it. So what it would look like is that a special act would come forward in front of the voters on a warrant, and it would be, a special act allowing the town to impose a certain real estate transfer fee on certain real transactions up to 2%. And the reason why we say 2% is that's what's happening in terms of the bill that's being enabled right now by, I think, Representative Connolly and Senator Joe Comerford. So they're staying within this 2%. So we don't want to go crazy. I mean, we know that, homes are nest eggs. And we don't want to, tax the people unnecessarily that feel this burden, okay? But what we are cognizant of is that there's this great disparity of, assessed value versus sale price. They're just completely on opposite ends. So what we're trying to do is make it realistic. So part of what we're doing is, nipping out the speculators that are coming in and buying the very, very high prices. And this might be a second home, a third home, it could be an investment. And what they're doing is every time that happens, then it's putting pressure on the people that are actually trying to stay in their homes, or trying to get a foot on the ladder, or your kids that moved back after college and just want to try to live close to you. So what that's doing is it's using part of the problem and making it part of the solution. And it's using the market to help solve that. So it's really, really important that it's not a tax in terms of, it's going to happen every year. Everyone's going to feel it. It's only literally when you are selling or buying property over $1 million one time. So it's a fee. So if you fit that category, there's a fee. It's not going to be a tax that you're paying every year. And what it's doing is it's trying to deter, that whole high end speculators. And generally the people, what I'm finding is the developers and the people that actually have that ability, they're like, yes, this makes sense. They can see that the coffee shops are closing early, or the restaurants are not, opening, or that, the barista is moving to Northampton because they can't afford, property. So generally what I'm finding is the people that actually have the money, they're the ones that are really supportive. And what I'm finding is trying to communicate to the people that are worried that maybe their property isn't worth, $1 million now, but what happens in 5 years? So what's very important is that this will be tied to consumer price index. So once you have that $1 million, each year you're going to be linked, you're going to be looking at inflation. So it's not that all of a sudden, your $1 million property in 5 years is going to get caught in that net. So that's very, very important. That's going to be tied to CPI. Again, we're really just looking at the upper tier. We're trying to deter, the speculators. And usually most people that have that, property, I mean, if you think about the money you've made, the appreciation that you've had, right? So if you had bought a property in the 70s, 80s for $70,000, you're making whatever, 100% appreciation. I mean, you're making a lot of money. So I think in just 5 years, the appreciation in Great Barrington is 73%. So, people have made quite a lot of money. So if you consider 73% appreciation over 5 years on your property and 0.5% that we're asking the buyer or the seller to pay, it's really puts things in perspective. Then you think about, the 6% commission with the realtors. And so it's a really, really small slice. It's almost, charitable in a way that people will donate, $5,000 to their favorite charity. Well, this is something that is for the common good. This is, community that has helped you raise your kids, that, you're supporting the school system. You're trying to keep it balanced and something that everyone can feel that it's sustainable and that there is a future. So that's my kind of pitch, and I hope I didn't bore you guys, but it's fairly complicated. But the main thing is that it's only a proposal, and it's one of these things that can be right sized for any municipality. But the big thing is that there is an urgency. And we have been told, and I've been working very, very closely with Amherst, Martha's Vineyard, Provincetown, and one of I think it's Chatham. And they've been really, really helping me out because they've all gone through this process. They have a home rule petition written. They are in the legislature right now waiting, basically. And so they've been very supportive. So this is not something that we've just come up with. There's a precedent there. And basically you just want to get, your foot in the door. You want to get seated at the table. You want to be part of that discussion. And so I'm hopeful, but, watch this space. We don't know what's going to happen, but on the 18th, we'll be discussing this in Great Barrington, and we'll see.
Can I just customize this a little for Stockbridge? 80% of our homes were built before 1980. So another thing we could potentially do with the money is, remember when she said we can go up to 110% of area median income, we can do community block grants, like similar to the federal grant, which is incredibly hard to administer, but is a really good idea around home repair, around roof repair, around those sorts of things. So what the mix of potential solutions are here might be a little bit different than Great Barrington. But I want to emphasize that with 3 people on the Zoom and an audience that includes 2 selectmen from other towns. Hi, Kathleen. Thank you for coming, by the way, to listen. We're not deciding tonight to do this. All we're deciding is that one thing Senator Edwards said is that she wasn't going to popcorn this. In other words, everyone who wants to do a home rule petition, every town, is going to be considered at once in this housing bill. And that will give us the right to then have an informed discussion that is determined at town meeting eventually about whether we want to actually adopt it. This only gives us the right to adopt it, which we don't currently have. So we're not making any decisions tonight about whether the merits of this or how to spend the money or anything else. All we're doing is trying to get aligned with these other 18 or 20 towns so that as they do this batch over the next month with this housing bill that we're considering. One last point. I did talk to Michael Blay about the numbers. And since 2020, we've averaged about $30 million a year in sales of homes that are over $1 million, 2020, 21, and 22. And to date, this year, we've had approximately $18 million in sales, but it's only about 10 homes. We're talking about just really like the sort of upper crust of homes in town, for lack of a better term. And FYI, those homes were originally purchased for $11 million. And in fact, there was one home that just sold for $1.8 million that was purchased for $1.1 million last year. So from 2022 to 2023, this is one of the most recent sales. There was a $700,000 gain. That house at 1%, it would generate $18,000 in revenue on a $700,000 gain. So, I just wanted to add a little bit of flavor there.
Yeah. Could I, just to piggyback, and is it okay with the chair? Yeah. Okay. I don't want to kind of take over. So one thing that Patrick mentioned, so another thing about this money is that it's local money, it's local control. So the Affordable Housing Trust Fund can determine where this money is going. So a lot of these bigger projects, once you take state money and federal money, you're tied into these lotteries. And what happens is you're tied into bigger lotteries that literally can bring people from all over the state, because it's a state funded lottery. So once you have these bigger developments, I'm not saying we don't want them, but I'm just saying that you don't have as much control. So if it's money that's being generated from Stockbridge and it's going into your affordable housing trust, right? Your group has the determination of where it goes. So they could work with a local developer, or they could, it could be privately funded. They could work specifically. So with Construct, we purchased the Windflower Inn in Great Barrington. We made sure that we, funded it to a certain way that we know exactly who's in there, the 13 units. So it's Great Barrington workers, people that live in Great Barrington. So the same thing with you, that if you had this funding stream, this Affordable Housing Trust Fund could make sure that goes to Stockbridge, people that live here, work here, struggle, here, the kids. So that's really, really important part of the puzzle. The other thing is this is leverageable money. So people might say, oh, it's just $200,000 or it's just $300,000. If you know about financing, is it's part of a capital stack. So some of the grants you have, they need to be matched. So there's a home grant that if the town matches, comes up with $300,000, you'll get another $300,000. So this is all leverageable money. And a lot of times you need money to get money. So, you can't kind of say poo-poo, it's not anything. It's actually a lot. And the fact that you can plan ahead and you can guarantee, okay, you can, project. You can say, okay, well, this is where we are halfway through the year. We know that we're going to be getting $200,000 and we know we have $200,000 in the trust now. What can we do with it? So it's great because you can actually plan ahead and be very, very strategic, which if you don't have that ability to have your fund replenished, your affordable housing trust fund replenished, it's very, very hard to make a dent in affordable housing or workforce housing. So that's another thing I'm really, really excited about. So does anyone have any questions?
Not at this point, no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I'm a big, I can't say I watch all your meetings, but I try to catch up, so. All right.
My goal,
Yeah, exactly. I don't have anything else to do except.
my goal is, if we're going to consider this, because of the October 23rd special town meeting, to consider the merger of the two regional school districts. Because of this Senate, because of the joint chair of the Senate Committee on Housing, had indicated that there is a pressing need, if you want to be considered, to get this done. And if Great Barrington decides to do it on their October 23rd town meeting, when we do our October 23rd town meeting, I want us to get a placeholder so that we can then, as a town, decide if this is something we want to do, perhaps at the next town meeting, but at least get the legislature's approval to act. We're not implementing this tax now. All we're doing is getting permission from the legislature to act. We're not committing anyone. And obviously there would be lots of opinions on this, not only on whether it's a good idea, but if it is, how we structure it, whether the buyer pays or the seller pays, whether it's 0.5% or 2%, whether it's $1 million or $2 million, who knows what the issues are, whether it's only residential or only commercial. There's a lot of things we could then decide, but if we don't get the home rule petition passed, we can't even consider it. And, and I want to be able to kind of use Stockbridge money to help Stockbridge residents. And that's why I think this is so important, because those are options we don't have the second we take state and federal money.
Do you guys have the draft language for your special?
I have it. So what I will say is, because we haven't officially discussed it, if you look at the packet, our agenda packet for September 18th, you will see a memo there that lays out my argument. I did draft a bylaw and a home rule petition, which we felt like it's too early to really go there. So you'll see the memo, depending on how the vote goes. I will make that available to our town council just to, go over it. So.
Your packet comes out tomorrow. So in other words, you can see it tomorrow when their packet comes out in terms of what their version is.
Tomorrow's Friday, right?
She didn't want to give it to us before she gives it to her colleagues.
Right.
Yeah. So you'll see. So, so look at the agenda packet tomorrow night, and there is a a draft of a home rule petition and a bylaw that is available. So I would be happy to share it if it's useful, but I can't.
It would be useful to share.
Yes, yes.
The bylaw,
Our
we don't
town
need
council.
It would, yeah. It would give you a running start because
Yeah.
it is quite a lot of work. And I was very fortunate to have a lot of mentors in Martha's Vineyard and, various towns that have done this, especially Amherst has been, great call out to Amherst. So it all has been vetted, this is similar to what they've used. So I would be happy to share it because again, it's a regional issue. So I would love to have you guys.
but we're not voting on the bylaw. All we're
No,
doing is
no.
voting on the home rule
Yeah.
petition. That is, I just want to emphasize to everyone that.
Exactly.
We can't be voting on something that we don't have in front
Yeah,
of us.
right.
Exactly. So the idea.
You know
was-
that, you understand that. I just want to make sure when people
Yeah, I
watch the
just needed to
meeting.
give people a sense of what it might look like.
Meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Selena has a
Selena has a
question too.
Hey, are you presenting to other towns and how many other towns are looking at it right now?
Patrick was the first one to ask me to speak. So, there is movement. So there's been some chatter about it and other towns have suggested that they might be interested. This is the very first meeting that I've sat in, so I don't know. The thought is that if we're all in it together, similar to what's happened on the Cape, they came in together and they have a voice. Boston obviously has a voice. Martha's Vineyard. So we would really be part of this whole, Western Mass regional solution. And the nice thing is, the more of us that come on, the stronger our voice. So I'm hopeful that more towns in Western Mass will join us, especially obviously in the Berkshires.
And the only towns that have the urgency, because we already have a town meeting scheduled for October 23rd because of the school merger. So
Yeah.
other towns outside of those 8 towns could consider it with a little bit more leisure, assuming that this bill, comes up around Thanksgiving or whenever. But, this is our one chance to get it on for this legislative session, because we already have a scheduled meeting for the 23rd. That warrant is going to close October 2nd. So if we're going to do this, we're going to have to vote it into the warrant as part of the school warrant. That'll come out with the 28th, right? Yeah.
And the two of them, because, there were some concerns about, really, hijacking the special town meeting. And so I'm very, very supportive of the schools. And so I, made sure that I had conversations with school administrators about this. And what they see is that, the more engagement, the better. So we're really trying to work on the future of our towns and the sustainability of our towns and our children. And there has been comments made how hard it is to recruit teachers and staff and, the cost. So, without families moving here and being able to afford to live here, our school is going to suffer. So it actually is a perfect pairing. And you'll get, increased engagement. You'll have a captive audience. You'll get very, very community focused. And, whichever way they vote, more people is more engagement. And I think it's a win-win. So the two of them are really linked in my opinion.
What do you guys think?
We're gonna make a decision, so next
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, I
We
can.
don't have any information in front of us.
Yeah, so again, the packet will be out tomorrow night. You'll see kind of my argument. Or the 18th is Monday, so at 6 p.m. our meeting is happening. I'll be zooming in because I'm having surgery tomorrow, so you won't see me in the round table, but, and then we'll discuss it. And so everything will, you'll know.
If Great Barrington
Yeah.
passes the request for a home rule petition on Monday night, it'd be my intention to take their language, run it by town council and bring it to this body for the next meeting for us to determine whether it's something we want to support. We don't need to reinvent this wheel. All we're looking for is permission from the state, from our, overlords at the state level. God love
And the
it.
special act, at least the one I've drafted, is very, very simple. I mean, it's real basic. It's not like you're gonna, and that was, that was advice given to me by Amherst. So, we made it very, very simple. So it's not going to be pages and pages of legalese.
All right.
So, well, thank you so much. I'll see you later.
No problem.
Anything else on that one, or what do you guys think of the sort of, if Great Barrington passes it?
All right. So, one point you made that we can use this money for house improvement.
Yeah. Community block grants. We can also use it to just build housing that would be preferenced for local residents, which we cannot do with state and federal money.
I just know we have a tight to build something is gonna be difficult in this town, but if we can use it for keeping people in houses and putting roofs and furnaces, stuff on there, but, yeah, let's see what they come up with, and we'll do it our next meeting. I mean,
I'll request Tuesday.
not too much to
Get everything.
discuss right now, because, but, to me, it's up to the town voters.
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
not gonna stifle it.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Why wouldn't?
Yeah.
Make a decision and for the whole town, I mean, that's up to the voters. Okay?
We're at the end.
Where'd she go? Executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, with the police and DPW unions, and the chair declares that an open meeting may be a detrimental effect on the bargaining of the public body, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel.
Union personnel?
Non-union.
Oh,
That's me.
oh, okay.
And we're not going back into open session.
Right. Second.
Roll call vote.
Roll call. Aye, Chuck.
Hi, Jamie.
Can we have a 3-minute recess before we start?